said to be overly reliant on fan service. Like Michael said, everybody cheers when Princess Leia is introduced. Everybody cheers when...
How dare the movie give people what they want?
Yep. Well, that's the funny thing. That's the argument. But the criticism isn't necessarily that they have been given what they want, but that it is reliant on the things that people want to pass without having its own sustainable content.
I disagree with these people when they say that it relied too much on fan service. I will say that another Star Wars story did rely too much on fan service.
So you contrast
right
to make your point.
So there's
with the one that we won't talk about.
Yes, there is another Star Wars story that relies way too much on fan service.
I must be in the 1% that actually enjoyed that particular.
Don't get me wrong.
You mean the greatest Star Wars movie made?
So when you see the Millennium Falcon,
yes,
it's not just fan service. It has a thematic purpose, and that's for Han Solo to detect it and find it. Mm-hmm. Why Han Solo was just hanging out near Jakku anyway, whatever. But
because the Force willed it,
and it's reasonable to assume.
He was hunting down the Millennium Falcon,
and also, I'm one with the Force. It was with me.
I mean, most of those questions they try to answer in there so that way you don't have...
That's the problem, is like the movie goes so quick that some of the naysayers say that leaves room for a lot of plot holes.
Not really.
But I also feel like the movie goes so quick that people just miss the explanations for the plot holes.
Exactly.
I also feel
because Han Solo does name specifically the people that he, like, that asshole had my Millennium Falcon.
It's like, no, he bought it from this guy who then he got it.
Right, so you can get the sense that he knows who is where and where he would be looking for it.
Yeah.
Anyway,
in one of these movies,
I disagree with that point, but I do understand where they might be coming from when they say that. It's just that there needs to be an understanding that there is a reason for some of those things to be in that movie. And if you didn't have any fan service, if the movie were just entirely new, there would be people complaining that there wasn't any at all.
That's true.
So
and obviously what they had worked for the majority of people.
I would argue that the idea that the movie was too reliant on fan service is ridiculous because the prequels, which although I think they had several high points, generally are considered not to be good, and even I, who like them, will tell you they are not really good movies. Yeah. So what Force Awakens needed to do was distance itself from the prequels because it wants to get people excited about Star Wars again. And what is the Star Wars that everybody loves? The original trilogy. It absolutely needed fan service. It absolutely did need to rely on fan service. It needed the Millennium Falcon within the first, 15 minutes of the movie?
Yep.
It needed Han Solo and Chewbacca, and we need to segue right into Leia. And, we need to be, the whole thing needs to be about finding Luke. And then the last shot of the movie absolutely needs to be Luke Skywalker.
But here's my thing. After they introduce the element from the original trilogy, there's a pause moment in the audio for the audience to applaud.
I think that is necessary because they knew that was going to happen. And if they had just kept going when all of us have talked about how all of our theaters erupted into, "Whoa, Millennium Falcon!" Then the audience would have missed even more than whatever the audience already misses because people are terrible at watching movies.
You have to be careful with that, though, because if there's an obvious gap, like by the time you've watched it the 50th time and you're not cheering anymore, there's just like an awkward,
pause.
And then the action.
To be fair, introduction of the Millennium Falcon in this movie versus the introduction of the Millennium Falcon in A New Hope. So you're introduced to this grandiose ship, and it is presented to you as if, oh, look, the impressive spaceship that's going to be a catalyst for the movie, and then it is called a piece of junk by Luke. So you have it mirrored the same sort of thing. So
garbage.
You mean that garbage?
It does play as fan service, and partially because it mirrors it, but it also, you can't say that it's just pausing for the audience reaction because it kind of does the same beat that works when it wasn't fan service.
Right. And there's music going, and they're running to the ship.
So,
oh my God.
Criticism and Eric's angry rant of the episode.
We're ready.
The Force Awakens is a remake of A New Hope.
Do that.
So, people claim that this movie was kind of a mishmash greatest hits of Episode 4 and Episode 5. It is not a remake of A New Hope. The closest it gets to being a remake of A New Hope is by being a remake of Return of the Jedi.
Which was a remake of New Hope.
Yeah! Remember
It's
that other Star Wars movie where they had another Death Star? Oh, wait, not an original Death Star, another Death Star. So it's literally exactly the same thing as Return of the
But wait.
Jedi.
It's like when you make a copy of a
and you
copy
remember
and it
when you
doesn't turn
actually
out
had
right.
the Emperor in the movie dictating what Darth Vader was? Oh, wait, that was Return of the Jedi. And oh, remember when somebody had to rescue somebody from a sand planet? Oh, wait, that was Return of the Jedi.
So what you're saying is this is a remake of Return of the Jedi.
It's uncanny how much, and it annoys me so much to see, like, the small group of people who decided to be rebellious and be cool to say that it's cool to hate Star Wars
It's cool to
because
hate
whatever
things that are popular.
actually
That's right.
screwed up. Like, they were like, oh yeah, we got it. It was a remake of A New Hope. Got it. Don't have to think about that anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and it infuriates me when there's just a lack of thought, and then you pass that opinion on and let it become a palpable
wait,
thing.
is there like a haters Illuminati?
It is a bit close. You know what I mean? Like, it is... There is more similarity to A New Hope than a lot of people obviously feel there should be. Death Star on a desert planet, or if you like, based on your argument, similarity to Return of the Jedi. There's only so many different ways you can configure something. But I do feel like a little more variety could have come in handy. How many completely desert planets could there be in the galaxy?
I would assume a lot.
That support life? I mean, it's a desert. But then again, on the other hand, there could be a thematic reason that will be further explored in the new movies as to why it couldn't have been Tatooine.
That's the other part, and this mostly comes into the only other big criticism that I've got from this, which is that Rey, there's a negative criticism of her being a Mary Sue character, somebody who's...
What, like Luke Skywalker or something?
I can't talk about Rey because I'm gonna be extremely biased.
Well, I disagree that she's anything like Luke Skywalker.
Right.
Yeah, and
I mean,
our
the whole-
behind the camera person is flipping off hardcore because she absolutely hates this, and I absolutely
Rey for
agree.
being Mary Sue. I've also heard people criticize Finn, like in his ability to use a lightsaber. He does have military training, and we also see that other guy with the baton and everything.
I
so-
gotta reel you
FN
back in because I
was
wanted to
fine.
jump off of a point that you made.
Oh no.
That this is part one of a 3-part story. And that everybody who is upset immediately that she can do these behaviors is not waiting for the explanation as to why she can utilize
Right.
these skills. We see her playing with an X-Wing action figure. We know that she's heard all of the stories of Luke Skywalker and heard these myths of how people are supposed to do things. And again, this is an example of how it's rushed, but there is an explanation for things that people are considering plot holes, where she must have been told that Jedis can use mind tricks. She must have been told the stories, sort of like the original trilogy is a legend to us. I feel like Rey has heard of or knows what a lightsaber is, what specific techniques people can use in the Force is from hearing the stories about Luke Skywalker, and that's why I identified immediately with our lead group of young characters, is because they were us.
Yeah, and you can kind of hear it in her voice, like when somebody mentions her name, like when Finn brings it up, she's like, Luke Skywalker.
Yeah.
Luke Skywalker. The Luke Skywalker?
What?
Yeah. So she...
Oh my god.
Yeah, I'm like, oh my god.
And then when Han Solo, she's like, oh my gosh, this is the Millennium Falcon when they get on board. So she's heard that story before. Like, she's been
Even Finn.
familiar with all these things. And so as soon as she becomes in tune with the Force, as she's been told, she begins to try to use it the way she's heard she's used it and becomes effective with it. Like, and I thought that was a really...
Also,
I don't think she's just a Mary Sue. I think that's just her reflecting us as an audience. Like, if you learn tomorrow that the Force was real,
You'd be doing it.
the next week you would be Rey. Because
No, I
we would
wouldn't.
all be trying those specific techniques. I would learn to use everything. But in any case, so I want to know what you guys think, though, about the critics' ratings being notably higher than the audience ratings. General audiences aren't giving it as much praise as critics.
I think this hit at the perfect time of the social zeitgeist, because I like using big words.
Zeitgeist.
That it was just really cool to not like things. And that
In
particular
2015?
super cool to not like things.
Mad
It's
Max
all-
Fury Road is 2015.
It's
man.
always been cool not to like things.
Yeah, but like that moment, Star Wars. Star Wars.
Something
Star Wars is
generally
back.
everybody hates. It'll be cool if we hate it. Yeah, let's do that.
People will
Hey,
think
but
that's
it's so
cool.
weird.
Go
'cause
to
you're
the
coming
forums.
off of. I guess maybe because the production took long enough for it to get there. Because if it had been like they didn't announce it until like a year before the movie came out, I think people would still be getting over the prequels. So that's the thing is Force Awakens continues, I think, the best traditions of what Star Wars did.
Yeah.
And so I definitely think that the critical reaction is well deserved, although it makes me nervous to think that like while a movie like Blade Runner can get middling reviews or similar reviews to the audience ratings for this one, and Batman v Superman can be absolutely trashed, like,
But still
there's
make
definite
tons of money.
discrepancy. Yeah, and it still makes a lot of money. What's the situation there with that? Like, universally
What's up with that,
paid,
guys?
paid critics are
Wait.
all giving it this high A.
Wait, isn't that our job to tell?
Well, we've noticed a
Paid.
theme, at least, is that science fiction, at least based on the ones that we've talked about, science fiction, critics love, audience, in the case of Blade Runner, don't love, in the
As
case of
much.
Star Wars, liked it, but not as much as the critics.
I want to know if critics are all just going to universally, paid critics are all just going to universally give positive reviews to certain movies. Because that informs whether or not people should care, you know, when those movies come out. Because if all of the paid critic reviews are going to be positive regardless, then that influences your perception of that. Like, I mean, if the general audiences think that this movie had plenty of flaws, which I think it did. I do think that there are flaws that keep this movie from being as close to a
Keep it
perfect
afloat.
score as the critics want to say
Oh,
that it
sure,
does.
yeah.
I don't know. How do you guys think? What do you think about the critics putting
So
it?
I think the critic score is higher because critics, as people who generally like movies or at least watch movies, presumably like movies, because why would you get in the critical field
Exactly.
unless you like movies? These are all people who either saw the original Star Wars or have loved the original Star Wars from the get-go.
Yep.
So when they see the new Star Wars and it's the old Star Wars, they get caught up and it's like, yeah, woo! And they just completely forget that it's supposed to be critics.
Well,
Whereas the audience...
They transition from critics to fans.
Exactly.
Is what happens.
That's one of the trends that I feel like. Like, my opinion on the audience review is, I think it's about the theatrical experience. And so, hear me out. I think critics are going to want to try to see the movie as soon as possible to get their review out so that people read it, yes?
Yeah.
So they're going to premieres. They're going to crowded audience showings.
Press
And
events, all that.
did any one of you, when you went to go see the movie, go to a crowd that wasn't cheering and doing all these things and up, you know?
That's a good point.
No.
This movie is much better enjoyed with a crowd of people who love Star Wars.
I think that the theatrical experience is informing the reaction of critics for this movie, whereas the user reviews can be made on like the internet. Some people who are like, "Nah, I'm gonna wait till the crowds are over," and like it's not their
downloaded
job.
A crappy
Yeah.
camp.
So you guys agree more with the critics, or do you agree more with the audience? With the audience having like mixed to positive reactions versus overly positive
Oh,
reactions.
I'm gonna go with the critics then.
Okay.
All day long. Like Lionel Richie.
Yeah, definitely the critics because again, and I can totally see how the critics want to see the movie, and even if they would have just kind of liked it, just totally got swept up in the audience reaction. And the people who originally went to see it, those are fun people, and I'd want to go see more movies with them.
Yeah.
Well,
Critics, but it made me think of something else. And that, it's nothing to do with this, really. You can hold on to that. I think Eric wants it, though. So, audience reaction, Batman versus Superman. The link below. Audience reaction was what?
I don't remember.
Well, critical reaction was garbage. We know that.
All reactions were surprisingly
but it
high.
was middle to higher.
Right.
60,
Well, that's
now-
because Star Wars and
63,
Batman v Superman,
7.0.
you know, about the same.
But
really.
then who, when
Same director,
you would
same
talk
studio,
to somebody
same
on the street,
platform.
just to
They would say
reiterate,
that movie's garbage.
Same.
they would say that movie's garbage. Turn it around. You ask anybody on the street, hey, what'd you think of The Force Awakens? What are most people going to say?
It was awesome.
Oh, I loved it. It was the best movie ever.
And
Okay.
yet, similar
And yet,
numbers to Batman v
similar
Superman.
numbers, yeah. So it's really interesting to see that.
So maybe the internet population isn't accurately reflecting popular opinion.
Oh, that's very interesting. Yes.
We need to conduct in-depth studies, double blind, where we don't even know where we are.
I already can't see without my glasses.
The Forum's Awakening.
Perfect.
So yeah, I agree with the critical response in that this movie is, and it's obviously not perfect. There isn't a perfect movie.
Yeah.
There are some that come close. Shawshank Redemption, Old Boy, Godfather.
Interesting selection.
So it's not perfect, but I enjoyed it very much because growing up with those movies, and I'm a person who's all about feelings and how things feel, and that movie felt good.
I know what you mean, because I cannot feel feelings, and that makes me sad.
And so I have to conclude by saying, yes, I absolutely agree with the critical reaction. And in my opinion, I think it says something for the theatrical experience, especially in an age where people are consistently talking cynically about how people text often and the theater experience is going downhill. They're underfunded, overly expensive concessions. People are on the like all this stuff that goes on. I think that it says something for these event films that people are sometimes exasperated by how much time and money like it goes towards these event films. That a movie came along that clearly had the theatrical experience that you always aim for. And I miss that, and I like that. It's like I usually hate being in a crowded theater and will avoid a movie like you like in a couple of weeks, but I'll avoid it just because I want to get that middle seat, and so I can see and hear everything clearly and get like, you know.
Get there early.
Hey, exactly.
I know, but like
That's half.
well now because they have the reserve seat.
Oh,
or
yeah,
whatever.
yeah.
Almost
yeah.
every
Stupid.
theater, yeah.
You remember
But-
that? How you
Retarded.
could get there early and then like just
And save
getting-
seats for your friends.
Exactly.
That's
just
part of the
getting there.
experience.
When we saw The Force Awakens in theaters, we had to sit to the left of the theater, but the audience reaction, I felt it, and it made me feel comfortable feeling what I was feeling because it resonated throughout the entire crowd that we were with.
You feel like you were watching it with the whole theater was full of your friends.
Yeah, and like that's a way for me to get lost in a movie rather than actively watching and thinking critically is you feel something and then you realize you're all feeling something and you're focusing on the feeling and you just get lost in the world and
Shared
the movie.
emotion.
And Star Wars I think is always going to have that perfect kind of thing.
I think we just had a moment.
I think we did.
It rippled.
It's true. The Force, the Jedi. All of it. It's all true.
I hate sand.
Dude, alright. Go live in the desert and don't rant about how sand sucks, because sand is the worst.
I
It is coarse,
can't breathe.
and it does get everywhere. That is, like...
It's all Obi-Wan's fault. He got all the sand in the house.
I killed them.
If
Why
they
you
were
Call of
people
Duty?
made of
I
sand,
killed
I
them.
would kill them all,
I
too.
killed them all.
I slaughtered them like animals.
I hate them!
Yeah, it's not on the list.
Okay.
So,
Thanks,
Sorry.
Will.
no, I got a couple of good sand comments in there that's relevant to Star Wars. I don't like sand.
I don't like sand.
It's coarse.
It is coarse.
Rough and irritating.
It is rough and irritating.
And it gets everywhere.
It does get
I
everywhere.
think he was talking about the direction of George Lucas during that scene.
I think he was talking about
Not
sand.
like here.
Thinly
Because
veiled.
sand is awful.
Everything here
Here
is
everything's soft
smooth.
and smooth.
What the hell? Excuse me. I know how Padme feels now.
We're gonna do this to all our guest stars, forewarning.
I'm a
so-
senator.